Coming up next on Kids TV and Me, author, illustrator, and children's television enthusiast Joshua Stauffer will be talking to you today about this.
Nick Jr. is
just for me. Just for me. I play, I learn, I learn, I see. Nick Jr. is just for me.
for who?
Just for me.
Time for bed, Rabbit. Time for bed, Mr. Snake. Sleepy time, Big Owl. In you get, Hippo. And you, Sock Thing. Bedtime, Slipper. Night-night, toys. See you in the morning.
Hello everybody, Joshua Stauffer here, back with another episode of Kids TV and Me. It's been a while since we've talked about one of my favorite Nick Jr. shows of all time, Kipper the dog. Well, that changes today. Today we're going to be talking about 3 episodes of Kipper. It'll be episodes 13, 14, and 15, The Conker Tree, The Goldfish, and Sleepless Night. These are 3 old favorites, all of which I watched when I was 3 years old. And not only that, at Christmas 2000, when I was 3, I got a little book here, part of the Little Kippers series, and it's titled Meow. This book is actually based on the first episode we're going to talk about today. It's an adaptation of The Conker Tree. So as we talk about this episode, I'm also going to compare it to this cute little book that I have here. And another thing that's really special about this episode, The Conker Tree, is that this was the second to last episode written by the original author of the books, Mick Inkpen, until the Christmas episode, Christmas Eve. In fact, most of the first 13 episodes were written by Mick Inkpen himself, with the exception of episode 2, The Umbrella, which was written by Bob Baker. But this story here, The Conker Tree, aka Meow, both the TV episode and the book were written by Mick Inkpen. And he did the illustrations for the book too. So without further ado, let's see what happens here. Now, if you watch this on the Fisher-Price YouTube channel, you'll notice that there is no additional writer listed at the bottom of the screen when it shows the episode title, The Conker Tree. It simply says, based on the books by Mick Inkpen. Now, when you first open the book here, there's a little thing here that says, this book belongs to, and next to that, my mom wrote in my name, Joshua, because I had this book when I was pretty little. I wasn't able to read or write yet, but I enjoyed looking at the pictures. Now, the very first page of this book and the first frame of the episode are pretty identical. The colors are a little different, though, and they're drawn slightly differently. But in both pictures, we see a kitten sitting on a high branch of a tree. The book begins. Kipper and Tiger were looking for chestnuts when they heard a noise. Meow! There was a kitten in the chestnut tree. Are you stuck? Said Kipper. Wow, this book actually jumps ahead quite a bit, because we'll hear this on the show later, but there's some other stuff first. One thing that's worth mentioning right away, though, is that in this book, they don't call those things conkers. They actually call them chestnuts. We were talking about that a month or two ago when we were talking about the episode Pig's Shop, where Kipper and Tiger were playing this game with the conkers, and we were comparing them to chestnuts. Which makes me wonder if Harcourt Brace and Company, the publisher of this book, changed it from conkers to chestnuts when they released it in the US. Interesting question, I don't know. So anyway, on the TV show, the picture slowly zooms away from the kitten in the tree. Then we cut to another angle with some different trees. And there's Kipper kicking around some fall leaves. And as Tiger walks into the picture, Kipper says, watch this, and he picks up some leaves and tosses them into the air, saying, whee! Hey, I recognize that shot right there. The first time I saw that was actually not in this episode, but in a little 15-second jingle for Nick Jr., because Kipper used to air on Nick Jr. when I was a little kid, when they would show Face and the children singing the Nick Jr. is Just For Me song. Towards the end of that little music video, when the kids give out a final cheer and saying, Just For Me, we saw this little part here with Kipper tossing the leaves up into the air. Then as the leaves come down, something lands on Tiger's nose. and Kipper's not quite sure what it is. At first he says, look, it's one of those twirly-whirly things. And sure enough, it kind of spins around as it slowly goes down to the ground after Tiger blows it off of his nose. And Kipper thinks they might be called helicopters, because when you twirl them around, they kind of spin around like helicopter blades. This is not the first time I've heard Kipper mention helicopters on this show, though. Even though this episode aired later, I didn't see this earlier one until, after that in a rerun. In Clouds, Kipper and Pig were looking up at the clouds, and Kipper thought he saw a cloud shaped like a helicopter. Then finally, Tiger says that it's actually a sycamore seed, but he's not interested in that right now because he's looking for conkers. And he thinks there might be some underneath a big tree. I wonder if that's going to be the tree where the kitten is. Well, I think that's the same tree we saw in the beginning, but where's the kitten? And Tiger's disappointed because he can't see any conkers, and he thinks somebody might have gotten them all before they got there. And Kipper doesn't even seem to care. He's too busy playing with his little sycamore seed helicopter thingy. He's kicking around some leaves, and alright, here we go. Now he hears the meow. And he's looking around the tree, trying to see where it's coming from. It gradually gets louder and louder. I guess the kitten sees Kipper. And then Kipper looks up, and he sees the kitten in the tree. He says, oh, hello. Wow, I recognize that part too. At the beginning of the day, at 9 a.m. when Nickelodeon started airing the preschool shows with Nick Jr., they did kind of a little 1 minute opening pageant with all the Nick Jr. characters saying good morning and the real kids and Face. And they sang a little bit of the Nick Jr.'s Just For Me song. And they used that part there where Kipper said, oh, hello. And after he says, oh, hello, Kipper says, what's the matter? Are you stuck? And that brings us to the end of the first page of this book. So let's turn the page now and see what happens next in the printed version. Kipper climbed onto Tiger's shoulders to reach the kitten. He grabbed the nearest branch, which snapped. And we see Kipper and Tiger all falling down in a heap with this branch of leaves on top of them. Chestnuts, said Tiger. But of course in the TV version he doesn't say chestnuts, he says conkers, but we'll get to that in a minute. Yeah, the little Kippers are sort of like a smaller version of the Kipper books. There's the regular full-size ones, which are a bit bigger than this. They have the book that you hold is a little bit bigger, as far as being tall and wide, and it also has more pages. This is a much smaller one. It's only about 20 pages. Then Kipper calls Tiger over. He says, Tiger, come and look at this. That reminds me of when Kipper said, come and look at this. It's a real hoot when he was looking at the comics in the tag sale episode, or the jumble sale, whatever you want to call it. But it's a different recording. Same words, though. So Kipper shows Tiger the kitten in the tree and asks him again if he's stuck. And Kipper's pretty convinced that the kitten is stuck. And Tiger says, we'll have to get it down. I wonder how it got up there. How'd you get up there? Of course, the kitten doesn't answer. Now Kipper's going to try to climb up the tree, but the trunk is too smooth. He doesn't have anything to really climb with. He says, no, there's no way up. So now Tiger's going to try climbing on Kipper's back. He's standing on Kipper's shoulders. Kipper's having trouble staying still, balancing Tiger up there. But it's not high enough. And Kipper tries to stand up straighter, and Tiger almost falls again until he grabs Kipper's ears, and Kipper says, ow, mind my ears. I didn't hear the D in mind when I was a kid. I always thought it was my ears. But yeah, that branch is still too high. And they eventually tumble to the ground. And as Tiger brushes the leaves off of his fur, he says, we should join the circus. Join the circus? Doesn't that sound familiar? They're pretending that they were a circus in the episode Kipper Circus that we talked about back in February. But once again, that was another episode that came after this. And in case you didn't know, I'm doing these episodes on the podcast in the order that they appear on the VHS tape that my mother recorded for me when I was 3 years old. Because those are the ones that had the biggest impact on my childhood. But now Tiger is saying this thing about a circus right after they just tried to climb on each other's shoulders and they fell over. So I wonder if Tiger was being sarcastic. Because based on what we just saw, they probably wouldn't be very good at acrobatics. That's funny. Tiger just blew into his face to get a leaf off of the top of his head, kind of twisted his face around and blew upwards. And now Kipper sees a branch hanging a little bit lower. He's going to try to jump up and climb up onto that branch to see if he can get to the kitten. Ah, here we go. This is what was in the book. Yeah, he said he grabbed the nearest branch, which snapped. And on a count of 3, he jumps up there and grabs the branch. He shakes it a bit. And actually, the branch doesn't snap in this version, but Kipper falls out of it, and a bunch of conkers also fall out. And that's when Tiger gets excited and says, "Conkers! Loads of them! Well done, you!" And he's very happy about that. And even though Tiger's happy that he found the conkers, he's still thinking of a way to rescue the kitten. And as he's thinking and pondering this, he's kind of rubbing the conkers on his fur to shine them up a bit. So I don't know if he's thinking about collecting these or playing games with them or what. And Tiger's saying, what we need is something to catch him in. You know, like firemen use. A fireman's blanket. When I was 3, I had no idea that Tiger was trying to say fireman, like a firefighter, as we call it in the US. My 3-year-old American ears could only hear fi. Like, what does the word fi mean? What is a fireman? I didn't have a clue. My only guess for a while was, we had a record store in the mall called FYE, which stands for Your Entertainment. Like, is that what fi is? But nope, I get it now. Fireman. A fireman's blanket. And Kipper thinks it's a good idea. And so he's gonna go home and get his own blanket out of his basket. And while Kipper goes to get the blankets, Tiger's gonna stay there and open up the conkers and count them. And while he's doing that, let's continue in the book for a second. Next page. Wait there, said Kipper. I'm going to get my blanket to catch the kitten. So Tiger watched the kitten and counted his chestnuts. And the next page. On the way back, Kipper met Pig and his little cousin Arnold. There's a kitten in the chestnut tree, he said. Come and help. Now the next thing we see on the show is Pig and Arnold, and just like in the book, we see them on the playground seesaw. And Kipper runs past and says, Hello, Pig. Hello, Arnold. Can't stop. Emergency. And Pig and Arnold are actually struggling on the seesaw because Pig's a lot heavier than Arnold, and Pig is kind of staying down, and Arnold's way up in the air, if you know what I mean, the way a seesaw works. We dissolve to a little bit later, and we see Pig got off of the seesaw and is just making it go up and down with his hands so that Arnold can actually go up and down and enjoy it. But then Pig abruptly lets go of the seesaw and Arnold kind of falls down. He's not hurt though, but Pig just noticed Kipper coming back and he's got his blanket. Pig says, What emergency? And Kipper says, Come and see if you like. Come on, Arnold. Oh, another theory I had about fireman's blankets when I was a little kid. I noticed that Kipper's blanket has all these fancy designs on it, and at my house, I actually might still have this somewhere, we had a fancy Afghan blanket. An Afghan is a handmade, knitted, or crocheted blanket or throw, named after the textiles of Afghanistan. They're known for intricate stitching, vibrant colors, and geometric patterns, according to Google. So even though the design's a little bit different there compared to Kipper's blanket, I was just thinking, it's a big blanket with fancy, colorful designs. I figured that maybe our Afghan could be considered a fireman's blanket, because apparently that's what Kipper has. Even though that's not true at all, he doesn't have a quote-unquote fireman's blanket or a fireman's blanket either. It's just his own basket bed blanket. So now Kipper and the 2 pigs return to the tree where the kitten is, and Tiger just finished counting his conkers. He reached 27, and then he says hello to Big and Arnold. And now they're all looking up into the tree, and they see the kitten, and Kipper points him out to Arnold, and then Arnold points to the kitten and says, Duck! Which, as many of you probably know, that's Arnold's catchphrase. Usually all he ever says is duck, with the exception of that one episode where he said igloo. It sounds a little bit different in this one. Usually when he says duck, it sounds like duck. But in this one, it's a different tone, like duck. But Kipper corrects him, he laughs and says, No, Arnold, it's not a duck, it's a kitten, and we're going to get it down. And so now they're opening up the blanket, and each of them are holding the 4 corners, spreading the blanket open for the kitten to jump into. I don't know if I've ever actually seen firemen use blankets like that in real life. I do remember the movie, The New Adventures of Pippi Longstocking, where there was the fire at the children's home, and they showed the glue man jumping into the blankets. And also, Pippi and Mr. Nielsen landed in the blanket after the rope caught on fire. They were trying to walk the tightrope to get out of the burning building. So Kipper and his friends are waiting for the kitten to jump into the blanket, but he's just sitting there not moving. And Tiger says, "He'll jump in a minute." And then we see Arnold crawling into a hole in the bottom of the tree. Wonder where he's going. And meanwhile, they're still waiting for the kitten, and Pig doesn't think the kitten's ever gonna come down. He says he's not going to, you know. And there's Arnold poking his head out from between the branches of the tree. So the inside of that tree must be hollow. And Arnold climbed up inside there to get to that branch where the kitten is. Everybody's shocked to see this. And Arnold's just sitting right there next to the kitten. And that is, in fact, another familiar shot. Right before Faye said, "For who?" And the kid said, "Just for me." Yeah, I'll never forget that. The children were saying, "I play, I learn, I laugh, and I see. Nick Jr. is just for me." And then we see Arnold sitting in the tree, sucking his thumb and stroking the kitten. And then Faye says, "For who?" And then we see very brief little clips of Lil Bear and Franklin, and then that Kipper shot with him tossing the leaves up into the air, and they say, "Yay, just for me!" Definitely some of the most iconic moments in the golden age of Nick Jr. As Arnold's sitting there with the kitten, he points to it and says, "Back!" So he just calls everything a duck, huh? So before we continue, let's look at some more of this book here. We've got a page here where it says, "Jump into my blanket," said Kipper. "Meow," said the kitten. It wouldn't jump. And it's just the three of them holding the blanket there. Like Kipper's got two corners, and Tiger and Pig have the other two corners. And to the far right of the page, we see Arnold getting ready to go up into the tree trunk. Now, on the next page, we got 4 different pictures here. Arnold climbed up inside the tree, and then he walked along the branch. He sat down and stroked the kitten, and then he showed it how to jump into the blanket. We don't see Arnold landing in the blanket in the book, though, but we're going to see it here on the show. Alright, so Arnold's going to jump and show the kitten how to jump into the blanket. He stands up and jumps, and then he falls into the blanket, and his friends kind of lift the blanket up a little bit, kind of toss him into the air. And he lands down on the blanket again, and they toss it up again, and he kind of does a little twirl in the air and lands on his feet. Fantastic! Makes you think of how you, lift a parachute up and down, kind of like what we used to do in gym class. And that part right there where Arnold lands into the blanket, they used that shot in the 30-second version of the Just For Me song. That was the longer one where they mentioned some of the characters like Big Brown Bear, Blue Dog, Smart Mouse, Pollywog. Nice place, nice face. Nick Jr. is just for me. Nick Jr. is just for me. I play, I learn, I laugh, and I see. And right when they said, "I play," that's where they showed this part here with Arnold landing in the blankets. And immediately after that, when they said, "I learn," they showed a little 1-second clip from Blue's Clues Treasure Hunt episode, where Steve was right behind the kitchen counter, wiggling his fingers and smiling. In the shorter version, the Lil Bear and Franklin clips, Lil Bear was dancing along from the episode Lil Bear Sing a Song, when he was saying "Ding Dong." And Franklin, I think, was simply a shot from the Season 1 intro, where he was hugging his stuffed dog, Sam. And these were the little bumpers that aired in 1999 and 2000, because 99 was when Nick Jr. started airing Kipper, and it continued all the way through 2000. Now, this episode of Kipper's almost over. Let's see how it concludes. Will they get the kitten? Looks like the kitten stood up. It's not sitting on the branch anymore. It's on its 4 legs. And Tiger thinks they're going to get him this time. Says, "He's going to jump. Hold tight, everyone." And they're holding onto the blanket. But instead of jumping, the kitten walks back into the middle of the tree, then climbs down the hollow trunk, comes out the bottom, and it turns out he wasn't stuck at all. And Kipper and Tiger, Pig, and Arnold fall down laughing as the kitten just scratches his ears and walks away. Oh, now Arnold's gonna try to chase the kitten. And that brings us to the final 2 pages of the book. The kitten got up. "He's going to jump," shouted Kipper. Actually, it was Tiger who said in the TV version, but oh well. But the kitten did not jump. It trod along the branch and climbed down inside the tree. Final page. Then it flicked its tail and went home. "It wasn't stuck at all," said Kipper. And on TV, it was actually Pig who said it wasn't stuck. So some of these lines, they interchanged a little bit between the characters, but the rest of the story was pretty much the same. And ooh, interesting, on the back cover, the inside back cover of this book, there's an advertisement for the very first Kipper VHS, The Visitor and Other Stories. That one contained the first 4 7-minute shorts. The Visitor, The Umbrella, The Seaside, and Nothing Ever Happens. I actually have that one. I found it at Goodwill a few years later, but we'll talk about that another day. So, that was Kipper, the Conker Tree, and the Little Kipper book, Meow. Visually speaking, it's definitely one of the most iconic episodes of the series, especially if you watch the show on Nick Jr. If you paid attention to all the little clips that they showed during the commercial breaks, they pulled a lot of stuff from this one during the Just For Me song. So it was really cool that we got to see the episode where all those clips came from, and it's also really nice that I got a book containing this story for Christmas back in the year 2000 when I was 3. And due to all of that, this is one of my all-time favorites. It's a very simple one, but has a lot of special meaning behind it, as I've told you. And both the A and C episodes of this program, The Conker Tree and Sleepless Nights, were released on VHS and DVD in the Friendship Tales collection in 2004. However, the B episode, which we're going to talk about next, The Goldfish, was released in the Cuddly Critters collection in 2002. So now I'm going to cut right here, and in a flash, we're going to talk about today's B episode of Kipper the Dog, The Goldfish.
What's that place on TV?
Just for me, and that's my friend Blue. Just for me, brown bear, blue dog, smart mouse, Hollywog.
Nice place.
Nice face. Nick Jr. is just for me. Nick Jr. is just for me. I play, I learn, I laugh, I see. Nick Jr. is just for me.
For who?
Just for me.
And we're back. Alright, let's talk about The Goldfish. Now, both the B and C episodes of this program, The Goldfish and Sleepless Nights, were both written by Matthew Westwood. Alright, let's see what we got. First thing we see is a stick tumbling into the picture here. Looks like they're outside, and it's a very gray sky in the background. And there's Kipper. And he's just kicking the stick along, trying to decide what to do today. And after a few seconds, he finally decides to go and see Tiger. And with one final kick on the stick, he goes ahead and does just that. But along the way, he sees a puddle with a half-dead goldfish laying in it. Like, it's not totally dead yet, but there's not much water for him. And he's just kind of sitting there flopping around. And Kipper says, "Hello? How did you end up in a puddle? I'm wondering the same thing. I've never quite figured that out. A goldfish sitting in a puddle there. I don't know if it got carried up onto the shore in a storm somehow, or if somebody was carrying one of those fish in a bag that you get from a pet store or carnival or something. That'd be really sad if they lost their fish that way and dropped it there. Yeah, I don't know." And Kipper's looking around. He can't figure out where the fish might have come from. So he takes both of his hands and scoops up the fish out of the pond and says, "You can't stay there." Which is very true. He says, "You can come with me. We'll have to be quick, though." So now he's trying to carry this goldfish with a little bit of water cupped into his hand. He's having trouble holding on to the fish because it keeps jumping around. And he finally arrives at Tiger's house and calls for Tiger to quick let him in. Yeah, it's true, because he's holding the fish in the water. He can't really knock on the door or ring the doorbell or anything if both of his hands are occupied like that. I mean, I guess he could kick on the door if he wanted to, but I guess shouting works, because then Tiger opens the door, and he lets Kipper in, and Tiger's holding what looks like a beach towel and swing flippers. And we see a whole pile of beach stuff scattered around the floor, and Tiger's getting ready to go on vacation. He says he's packing up for his holidays. And Tiger's got all kinds of stuff here. There's some boots, a shovel, rubber ducky, sunglasses, sunscreen, a toothbrush, a beach ball. There's a camera there, too. That camera looks familiar. Where have I seen that before? Was there an episode of Kipper where they were taking pictures? They took pictures in Hedgehog Watch, but that was a much more modern camera than this. Oh, wait a minute. What did that camera on Blue's Clues look like? The one from the episode Majetta's Coming Over. Wow, that camera actually looks very similar to that. I'm looking at some stills from that Blue's Clues episode right now. Like, it's a different design, but they're both yellow and red, and it's got this little viewfinder thing at the top, like right at the very middle. It's got like this round part on top, and then there's a yellow button at the corner. Okay. It's really interesting to see similar cameras on two different Nick Jr. shows, even though Kipper's not really an official Nick Jr. show. It was one that they acquired. They didn't make it themselves. So anyway, Kipper says, "Tiger, look what I found!" And Tiger doesn't even look. He just says, "Oh yes, very nice, Kipper." Doesn't even look at the fish in Kipper's hand that he's still struggling to hold on to. And Tiger's talking to himself, packing up his swimming trunks. When I was 3, at first I thought he said tricks or trinks or something, but no, it's swimming trunks, which is another word for swimsuit, like the kind of shorts that you wear when you're swimming. And Kipper really wishes that Tiger would help him with his fish, and then he sees Tiger's bucket sitting there, and he drops the fish into the buckets and then runs it over to the sink and fills it up with water. And see, there's another weird shot with like a side view of Tiger, and his mouth is underneath his neck, like below his chin. This is definitely one of the earlier episodes because they eventually figured out how to do a side view of his talking face later. Right here where Tiger's saying, "What are you doing, Kipper?" His mouth is underneath his chin, like tucked in his neck, and then at the very next shot, we see his mouth above his chin, right beneath his nose. I don't know what the animators were thinking when they did it that way. It's really weird. Like, even at the age of 3, I noticed that. So then Kipper finally shows Tiger the fish in the buckets and explains they found it in a puddle, but Tiger's not too happy about this. He says, "You're gonna have to find someplace else to put your fish. I gotta pack my bucket. I can't go on holiday without it." Then Kipper notices that Tiger has a goldfish bowl sitting on top of a chest of drawers. And Kipper thinks that maybe he could put the tadpole in there. Or, I'm getting ahead of myself. There's a tadpole in the goldfish bowl that belongs to Tiger, and Kipper's thinking that maybe he could put his goldfish in there with him. And Kipper's pretty convinced that the goldfish and the tadpole could share the bowl. Well, the goldfish bowl has a little house inside it for the tadpole to swim in and out of. And Tiger's afraid that if the goldfish is in there with the tadpole, that maybe the goldfish would eat the tadpole because the goldfish is bigger. Tiger says, "Besides, there's not really enough room for 2 fish in there." And Kipper's like, "Fish? Tiger, don't you know what a tadpole is? A tadpole is a baby." And then Tiger cuts him off and hands him a plastic bag full of water for Kipper to take the goldfish home in. So it appears that Tiger doesn't know yet that a tadpole is a young frog. He thinks that the tadpole's just a fish. So then we dissolve to Tiger leaving. His suitcase is all packed. It's the kind with wheels on the one side. He's rolling it along. Kipper says, "Have a good time. Send me a card." So now Kipper's on a mission to find a proper home for his goldfish. Then we fade to black, and here comes the next scene. Kipper's going in the back door of his house, trying to think of a place to put his goldfish. He looks up at some plants on a high shelf. They look very nice, but not a good place for a fish. Looks over towards his basket bed with his stuffed animals in it. Oh wow, there's even a bone in his bed. I've never noticed that before. And we'll see more of the bed and the animals in the C episode today. Kipper looks over towards the kitchen table, and the iconic cereal boxes there with the rooster and the sunbeams, along with a tea set and some plates and spoons. There's also a nearly empty jar of cherry jam. And Kipper says, "That's what I'll use, a jam jar." It'd be a very tiny goldfish bowl, but it is a round glass container, so we'll see if that works. And so then Kipper eats what's left of the jam out of the jar, and then I assume he washes it out the rest of the way, and then puts some water and the fish into it. And meanwhile, we see Tiger on his vacation at the beach. He's eating some cotton candy, lying there in a beach chair with a hat and sunglasses on. I can't help but notice that bucket right there. Wait, is that the same bucket that Kipper tried to put the fish in earlier? Oh yeah, I guess it is. But the way the handle is sticking straight up like that, it looks very much like Pail from Blue's Clues. You know, with the yellow handle and the red bucket. It looks exactly like Pail. Just put a face on there and boom, you got Pail. And here comes a seagull. Let me play this in slow motion. What exactly is this seagull doing? Okay, the seagull is taking Tiger's hat. And as Tiger turns around and tries to catch the hat, he drops his cotton candy and the sunglasses fly off. And then the picture flashes, and then we see a still picture of Tiger reaching up to try to grab the hat that's the seagull stole. I wonder who took that picture, because there's no way Tiger could have taken that himself unless he brought a tripod for his camera and there was a timer on it. I don't know, maybe he hired a photographer or something. And then we see Tiger's tadpole back at his house, and the tadpole looks like it's getting bigger. It's got 2 legs on it. Yeah, this is the very first show where I learned that a tadpole is a baby frog. I've seen a bunch of other shows talk about that too. As a matter of fact, just 3 years ago on Eleanor Wonders Why, the episode Eleanor's Fishy Friend, Eleanor was friends with she made friends with a tadpole in the creek there, and she was watching it grow and change into a frog. At the beginning of that show, she was totally interested in fish, like it was the coolest thing in the world, and towards the end, she was completely interested in frogs. And at the beginning, her dad was saying, I think Eleanor's on a bit of a fish kick, and at the end, her dad said, I think she's on a bit of a frog kick. Let's see, what other shows were there? Oh yeah, Curious George. What was that episode called? It was the last one featured in the Zoo Night and Other Stories DVD. Curious George Discovers the Poles. That was Season 1, Episode 10A of Curious George, the PBS Kids series. Okay. Now, in that version, George knew that the tadpoles were unique and that they're different from fish, but as he watched his tadpoles change, at first he assumes that it was a completely different creature and that they scared the tadpoles away. And then he found out later that it was the same creature all along, turning into a frog. I also remember this being mentioned on Taboomafu in the episode Slimy Buddies. Zombie was looking at those little tadpoles in the guy's hand saying, I can't believe my mind. Those little swimmers become frogs? They don't look at all like their mom. And in this episode of Kipper, Tiger is eventually going to learn the same thing. And Kipper knows it. But what he doesn't know is how to take care of his goldfish properly yet. He's sitting there at the kitchen table watching his goldfish in the jam jar. And he's eating something out of a box, some kind of white stuff. And Kipper's starting to realize that the fish is not too happy in the jar because there's not enough room for him to swim around in. The fish is too big. Now he's thinking that it might be a better idea to put the fish into an ice cream tub. Oh, so that's what that is. Ice cream, huh? Must be vanilla ice cream since it's white. I've never seen a square ice cream container before. They're usually round. Well, more recently I've seen square yogurt containers, but never ice cream, I don't think. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they're more popular in the UK, those kind of containers. Alright, continuing on with Tiger's holiday. We see Tiger on a roller coaster. And he's coming down really fast, and he looks a little bit scared there, like, whoa! We don't hear any sound out of him, though, but his face says it all. Then another flash on the picture, and another still is taken. There's gotta be somebody there taking these pictures. Because it's not like Tiger's got a camera on the roller coaster somewhere, otherwise the background behind him would have been moving. Let me look at that roller coaster again. Is that the same one that they showed in the episode The Magic Lamp? Let's see, it's purple on the bottom, mostly red, got a yellow sun design on the front, and it's got green seats with yellow borders. Let me pull out the Magic Lamp here real quick. Wow, it does look very similar. Almost the same design, just a few slight minor differences in the design, but most of the same colors. Mostly red with some yellow and green, purple on the bottom. In the Magic Lamp, the sun actually has orange in the center with the yellow rays. In the Goldfish, it's a completely yellow sun. In the Magic Lamp, Kipper was wishing that he could take a ride on the biggest, highest, longest, scariest Big Dipper in the whole world. So maybe he heard about this roller coaster that Tiger rode on during his holiday, and he wished he could have rode it himself, and with the Magic Lamp he was able to make that wish come true. That could be. Alright, there's Tiger's tadpole again. It's not really a tadpole anymore, it's a green frog now with a tail. The frog's getting a little too big for the goldfish bowl. Meanwhile, Kipper's goldfish is having trouble adapting to the ice cream tub. And when Kipper observes what's going on, he says something really funny. That's not right. You want to go round and round, not square and square. Square and square. Oh, that's hilarious. But yeah, as the goldfish is swimming, he's kind of running into each corner every time he tries to swim around. And then he hears something come through his mail slot at the front door. He walks up to it, and Tiger did in fact send Kipper a card. He'd been hoping for one. It's a postcard with a little picture of the ocean side. There's a few mountains in the background too, that's kind of cool. The card says, "Dear Kipper, having a lovely time, only 3 more days. Love, Tiger." How long has he been away? It's definitely been more than 3 days, maybe close to a week. Because nobody's been around to feed the tadpole. Must be enough food in the bowl already. So Tiger says he's having a lovely time, but the 2 pictures that we've seen so far, looks like he's having a little bit of trouble enjoying it, because there was the whole ordeal with the seagull stealing his hat, and then there was the scary ride on the roller coaster. And now you see Tiger again, jumping in the ocean waves. Looks like he's having a lot of fun there. And there's his bucket and green backpack and beach chair in the background. Seagull didn't take those yet. Oh wow, now Tiger's being chased by a really huge wave. Isn't that funny? We were just talking about waves last week on Reading Rainbow, My Life of the Wave. And we got another picture clicked. I wonder if Tiger is sending Kipper these pictures. I was going to say maybe they came with the postcard that he sent, but that wouldn't make sense. Otherwise, they would have to be an envelope to hold them all together. Maybe these pictures are just for Tiger's personal collection. Who knows? And there's Tiger's goldfish bowl once more. The frog is fully grown, swimming around. And he comes to the surface and jumps up onto the edge. Oh, that reminds me. Back in February when we were talking about the gizmo, there was a frog in that one too, and I was wondering if that was this same frog who followed Tiger home on his sailboat to see him again, possibly. That was kind of a funny little theory. Don't know if this is that same frog or not, because it'll really make sense when we find out what happens to the frog at the end. Now Kipper's in the bathroom looking down into the bathtub, which can only mean one thing. Yep, the goldfish is in there. And the goldfish is certainly blowing some really big bubbles. What's going on here? The goldfish looks pretty unhappy too. And we actually see these bubbles floating up. Does this mean that... Is there soap in this bathtub? Is the fish swimming around in soapy water? Ew! That could be deadly for a little goldfish. You better get that thing out of there, Kipper. He says, "Oh dear, I'm sure that's not right." Yeah, really. And now, here we are at the park. There's the duck pond. And Kipper's carrying the fish in the ice cream tub again. Good idea. Definitely a lot better than carrying it in your hands, huh? And Kipper says, "This is where you belong. Not in a puddle, not in a jam jar, and not in my bath." And he picks up the ice cream container and dumps the fish into the duck pond. He says, "Bye-bye then. Goodbye." Bye-bye then, goodbye. They used that same recording again in the episode The Magic Carpet, when he was saying goodbye to the carpet as it was flying away. So I wonder if that's where the fish came from originally, if it was living in the pond and somehow got washed up onto the shore. I don't know how close to the park Kipper was in the beginning, but it's certainly a possibility. Now, here's Tiger coming home. What's he carrying there? He's wearing his sunglasses and he's pulling his suitcase on wheels. He's carrying some kind of green thing too. What is that? What is that thing? It almost looks like a giant tadpole. I was gonna say, is it a shark or a dolphin or a whale or something? But that can't be. It's got feet on it. It's this big green creature. I don't know, maybe it's some kind of lizard. Who knows? I wonder if Tiger won this toy by playing some kind of boardwalk game. That could be. Then the two of them say hello, and Kipper says, "Have you had a good holiday?" Tiger says, "Yes, thanks. How's your fish?" Then Kipper explains that he just left him go in the pond at the park, and Tiger agrees that it's probably for the best. So now they're going into Tiger's house, and as they're walking in the door, they don't notice it, but the frog is hopping out of the door. He's just happy to finally be able to get out of that fishbowl and hop away, be free. And see, there they're doing it again. Tiger says, "That's funny, my tadpole is gone." When he says, "That's funny," he's talking out of his neck. And when he says, "My tadpole is gone," he turns around and he's talking out the front of his face, below his nose. This is some of the most ridiculous animation as far as talking and lip syncing that I've ever seen. So they see that the tadpole is gone, and Kipper's not really all that surprised. He knows exactly what happened. And that's when he tells Tiger that a tadpole is not a fish, it's a baby frog. And then Tiger just laughs hysterically at him. He's like, a baby frog? A frog with a wiggly tail? Oh, Kipper, don't you know anything? Like, Tiger doesn't believe him. At least not yet. Hopefully he'll figure it out eventually. At least he's not sad that the tadpole is gone. He's just laughing. Oh, by the way, that's actually not just a drawers. It's a little cabinet with doors that swing open that the goldfish bowl is sitting on. And final scene, yep, there's the frog jumping into the pond, which I assume is the same pond where they were trying to sail Tiger's sailboats. And that's when the frog in the Gizmo episode first climbed up onto the boat and eventually rode on the boat and followed Kipper and Tiger home. So it could be the same frog, because the Gizmo came after this. The Goldfish is episode 14, and the Gizmo is episode 25, right? Yeah, episode 25. Actually, I don't know, because the frog in the Goldfish has a much greener belly. Didn't the frog in the Gizmo have a belly that was a lighter green? Or am I thinking of the magic frog from the Rainbow Puddle? Yeah, so unless they decide to color it differently between episodes, like if it had like a different art director or something, the frog in the Gizmo looks different than the one in the Goldfish, so it might be a different frog. Be funny if it was the same one though. So anyway, in the final shots, the frog climbs up onto a lily pad there, and there's the goldfish, and the fish squirts water right into the frog's face. The frog kind of shakes himself off and looks a little bit annoyed. And that's it. That was Kipper the dog, the goldfish. Very interesting story. It's kind of cool how Kipper rescued that fish from potentially dying in that puddle and figuring out what to do with it. And I'm very glad that the fish was released into the wild. That was really cool. Alright, that's pretty much all I have to say about that one. So I'm going to cut here once again, and then we're going to take a look at one of the most iconic Kipper episodes of all time, Sleepless Nights. I'll be back with that in a moment.
Did you know Kipper is coming up next on Nick Jr.? Really? What should we do? Let's just sit here and wait till he comes. Okay. And then we'll watch him. I like the way you sing. Just for me!
Wait, there's a little more. All done. Kipper is next, here on Nick Jr.
And we're back once again. Now, for those of you who didn't have any idea what those weird sound effects were, that was Face drinking some juice out of a cup with a very intricate crazy straw that goes all around his face and actually forms the shape of goggles all around. On Nick Jr., Face always drank through that crazy straw before every single episode of Franklin and Kipper. And sometimes Blue's Clues, too. So for those of you who grew up in the late 90s and early 2000s and watched Nick Jr. or watched Kipper on Nick Jr. growing up and you remember seeing that, that's what that was. A little bit of nostalgia for you guys. And for those of you who watched Kipper elsewhere and never watched it on Nick Jr. and you've never heard those weird sounds before, that's what that was. Now, one last thing before I continue. I just want to apologize once again for not posting anything in the month of May. I went on 2 vacations. First, I went to the Outer Banks with my family, and we also went up to the mountains of northern PA and stayed in a log cabin. It's kind of interesting. I just went on 2 holidays, and Tiger just came back from his holiday too. So it all works out. Now I'm going to try very hard to keep my schedule consistent here for this summer. I'll talk more about my summer plans when we're done today, but right now we're going to talk about one more episode of Kipper the Dog, Sleepless Nights. Here we go. First thing we see is a little bit of a mess in Kipper's bedroom. There's some puzzle pieces, a flashlight, a bunch of books, a ball, some colored pencils, a toy airplane, and a book. And the camera pans over towards Kipper's bed, and Kipper's standing right behind it, getting ready to go to sleep. And he says goodnight to his stuffed animals one by one and tucks them in. This is a very memorable moment right here because this is one of multiple episodes in which Kipper does this. I think he also did it in The Big Freeze and also The Magic Carpets, if I'm not mistaken. He says, "Time for bed, rabbit. Time for bed, Mr. Snake. Sleepy time, Big Owl." And he picks up his rubber hippo and squeezes it a couple times and makes it squeak. He says, "In you get, hippo. And you, sock thing." Let me take a look at, what's the difference between Mr. Snake and Sock Thing? Okay, Mr. Snake is, like this, long, skinny beanbag kind of thing, whereas Sock Thing is a red and white striped sock, and Kipper put a face on it, and he uses it as a sock puppet. So in a way, they're kind of like both snakes, but Sock Thing is, just a puppet thing that Kipper made out of a sock. And speaking of Big Owl, in the book that I'm working on, Zoe's Friends, there's a grocery store called Big Owl Markets, and the name, I kind of borrowed it from Kipper's stuffed Big Owl. And the reason I chose that name was because here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, we have two grocery store chains that are very popular. There's Giant Food Stores and Wise Markets. And I was thinking that, giants are big and owls are wise, so they say. So like giant and wise, big owl. Big Owl Markets. Get it? Now when Kipper says, "In you get, hippo," they use that same recording again in the tag sale / the jumble sale, where Kipper was tidying up a little bit before Big and Arnold arrived for cake. And now Kipper's looking for Slipper. He's not quite sure where the slipper is, and he only has one slipper, and he just so happens to be wearing it for whatever reason. Just the one slipper. Looks like a teddy bear slipper. And yes, that is in fact the same slipper that is featured in the intro. The dog with the slipper. That's Kipper. Kipper the dog. By the way, it's a toad, not a frog. He's looking around for it. He looks inside his bed and the slipper's not there. Then he gets into his bed and pokes his foot out and he finds it. Then he reaches up and the light in his bedroom has a long chain that comes down that he reaches up and grabs and pulls. That chain always made me think of the chain that we have in our basement for the lights right over the washer and dryer. It's the first thing I thought of when I was little, when I saw that. And so he turns out the lights and he tries to go to sleep, but for some reason he's not able to fall asleep. He says he's tired, but he can't sleep. So then he picks up his book and tries to read a little bit, but he's too tired to read, too. And he says, "I wonder if Tiger's asleep." So then he gets out of bed and now he's going to call Tiger. Now we see Tiger in bed. There's a blue telephone right next to his bed. It starts ringing. That might very well be the same phone that Tiger answered in the Hiccups episode. We didn't see his bed then, but might have been like a little bit off camera. And Tiger yawns and turns on his light. He's got a pull chain too for his bedroom light. But Tiger actually sleeps in a real bed. It's not a dog basket like Kipper sleeps in. He says, "Who on earth could that be?" And he answers the phone and says, "Hello?" And Kipper says, "Is that Tiger? It's me, Kipper." And Tiger says hello and says, "Do you know what time it is?" And Kipper says that he can't sleep and doesn't know what to do. And then Tiger suggests that the best thing that Kipper could do is, like the best way to fall asleep is just not thinking about it. And Kipper thinks he can't help thinking about it because he's tired. But Tiger says, "Well, think about something else and you will fall asleep." And Kipper says, "Are you sure?" And Tiger says, "Positive. Night-night, Kipper." And then he hangs up before Kipper even has a chance to say goodnight, Tiger. And we hear that like hang up, like ringtone kind of thing, like As a kid, that was the first time I ever heard that sound because I didn't really use the phone all that much at the age of 3. And so Kipper goes back into bed for a little bit and tries to think of what else he can think about. He thinks maybe he should think about something really boring. And he thinks tidying up. That's boring. Then he turns on the light again and says, "Yes, I could just tidy up." Good idea. So he's gonna tidy up the mess in his room, pick up his things. Then we dissolve to a little bit later, and we see his things neatly stacked against the wall there. The puzzle's back in the box. The 2 balls are sitting on top of it. I've always wondered what that was there. It's 4 books and the toy airplane sitting on top of it. When I was 3, I almost thought that looked like some kind of play kitchen or something. Because I think I had one that had a little yellow roof on it. It was a little bit hard to see what all this was on the tape that I had because it was kind of a low quality recording. And the colored pencils are back in the jar. And I don't know what that rolled up piece of paper is supposed to be. It's got a red string tied around it. And there's the flashlight. And Kipper looks at the fine job that he did and says, "That's better," and gets back into bed, turns off the light again, tries to go to sleep. But then all of a sudden, kaboom! Thunder and lightning. There's a storm outside. Kipper turns on the light, gets up and says, "Oh no, now I'll never get to sleep." He goes over to the window and opens the curtains and sees the storm outside. We fade to black and come back a little bit later. And we see a view up into the sky. The storm is stopping. And we see the moon coming out from behind the clouds. Beautiful starry night. Then Kipper opens his window and pokes his head out. And he's happy to see that the storm's over. He says, "At last." And there's some water dripping onto the windowsill from the top of the window there. And actually, let me take a look again at the Nick Jr.'s Just For Me song. Did they use this shot too? Makes sense, it's the same program. Yeah, they did use that. In fact, if you look really closely, you can see that drop of water coming down as Kipper pokes his head out the window. This is definitely that same episode. Yeah, it's the very beginning of the song where Faith says, "What's that place on TV? Just for me." Yeah, they showed two things on that really vintage TV screen in that shot. First, they show a little piece from Blue's Clues. It was the one where Blue was mailing a letter to Magenta, and we see Steve and Blue running out the house towards mailbox, getting ready to mail the letter. And immediately after that, we see this shot from the Kipper episode, Sleepless Night. Very cool. Yes, that was me yawning just now, in case you heard. Which is perfect because after Kipper looks out the window, he gets back in bed, turns out the light once again, and lets out a big yawn. He's ready to go to sleep now. But he's not able to because he keeps hearing this.
Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!
Kipper hears the rainwater dripping on the windowsill. And it keeps going tap, 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 tap. And it's really getting on his nerves, and he very angrily turns on the light again, gets out of bed and says, "Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!" Then he goes over to the window and slams it shut and says, "Stop it!" Sheesh, man, I've never seen Kipper that pissed off before. He's really frustrated there. And finally he decides, I think I'll go for a walk. And he's holding Hippo and gives it a little squeak and says, "Come on, Hippo." And so he carries his Hippo with him and he opens the door and goes out for a walk. And as he walks out, he kind of, I guess he opens the door pretty hard because it kind of slowly closes shut by itself. And then when it finally closes, the picture fades to black. And then it very abruptly appears again. Like, it doesn't fade back in. It just goes from black to the picture of Kipper's bed again. And so I don't know how far Kipper walked or how long he walked or where he walked to. But whatever he did, it must have helped him calm down a little bit. Walking outside in the middle of the night right after it rained must be pretty interesting. It might look kind of pretty out there with the leaves and everything all shiny from having just rained. I imagine the sidewalks are probably still a little bit wet, but at least there's no rain coming down on them. He says, "Yes, a good long walk should help me sleep." Lets out another yawn, turns out his light, and tries to go to sleep once again. I just noticed now that he doesn't really have a pillow. I guess he just uses all of his stuffed animals as a pillow. Just kind of lays on him. This time he actually does fall asleep because we hear him snoring for a bit. But then something really creepy happens. He gets startled awake by the telephone. The phone rings in the middle of the night. Kipper says, "Whoa!" He turns on the light and says, "I don't believe it." He very angrily picks up the phone and says, "Yes?" That reminds me of one of the shorts on Playhouse Disney, Good Manners with Max. They were talking about good telephone manners, and Max was saying that it's usually not nice to just pick up the phone and say, "Yeah." Kipper's too tired and frustrated to think about manners right now. He just picks up the phone and says, "Yes." But that's not quite as weird as what Tiger says. He says, "Are you asleep yet, Kipper?" "Are you asleep?" And Kipper has a perfect response to that. He says, "How can I be asleep when I've answered the telephone?" When I was a kid, it took me a while to figure out that that's actually what he said. At first I thought it was maybe, how can I be asleep, like, from the noise of the telephone, because the phone ringing woke him up. And then maybe I thought he said that, how can I be asleep when I'm always on the telephone? But no, when I've answered the telephone, that's what he said. And he definitely has a valid point. Like, why in the world would Tiger ask him if he's asleep? Because if he's asleep, the phone would still be ringing. That's funny. And Tiger says that he can't sleep either. He says the thunder was noisy, wasn't it? As he fluffs his pillow. Kipper says, that was ages ago. So has it been like an hour since the storm ended? He was laying there for a while, hearing the water tap on the windowsill, and then he went out for that walk, so yeah, I guess it would have been a while. And Tiger says, oh well. And we see he has kind of a mad face, like he doesn't appreciate the way that Kipper's talking to him, so he says, oh well, shouldn't disturb you. See you soon. He hangs up, and then Tiger just kind of lays back in bed, and we don't see him turning out the lights, so I don't know if he's just gonna lay there awake for a while or what, but we cut back to Kipper, and he's like shrugging and looking at the phone like, what was the point of that call? You just got me up for nothing. I guess Tiger couldn't sleep and he was bored, so decided to take a bed and see if Kipper was still awake. But it wasn't worth it. Oh my, I remember this part. Here we go, the sheep counting scene. Kipper gets back into bed and says, maybe I should try counting sheep. That's supposed to work. This is also the first time I've ever heard of the concept of counting sheep. So Kipper turns out the lights, and the picture slowly zooms away from Kipper's bed, making room on the screen for a big thought balloon. And Kipper starts by counting 3 sheep, and we see the sheep hopping along in his thought balloon. And when he gets to 3, Kipper's thinking, I wonder what the biggest number ever would be. I wonder if anyone's ever counted as far as that. I hope not, because it would take more than 8 hours to do that. Like, a lifetime, basically. Because you can count to infinity. Well, nobody really could, but, like, you can count on and on and on and on and on. Not that anybody would want to. He continues counting. 5, 6, 7, 8. And Kipper also wonders why it's sheep you're supposed to count. Like, what's so special about sheep? Like, why not count something else? Well, he's about to find out in a few seconds. He continues counting. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And when he gets to 13, we start hearing a kind of a scary noise in the background.
9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
It's a kangaroo hopping along, and the 13th sheep looks behind him and gets scared as he hops along, and then we see the kangaroo chasing sheep number 13. And all of a sudden, the thought balloon dissolves, and Kipper abruptly wakes up. So yeah, he was kind of getting himself to sleep there, but just entered the edge of a nightmare, pretty much. Woo-wee. Yeah, that part's really creepy, but wasn't really creepy in a way that caused any problems when I was little, so you don't have to worry about that. And he wakes up and says, whew, it was just a dream. Now I know why it's sheep. Because he was wondering why you're supposed to count sheep as opposed to something else, and he figures if you count kangaroos, it wouldn't make you sleepy at all. Nope, probably not. Yeah, I've had similar experiences where I feel like I'm almost falling asleep and then something abruptly wakes me up. Like, I've had times where I'm laying there and I, like, just almost fall asleep, like I'm right on the edge of dozing off, and then I feel like I'm falling off of a cliff or something, and I'm like, whoa! And I abruptly wake up. Almost as if my body was floating a little bit as it was dozing off, and then just kind of fell back down to the bed, you know what I mean? It's really weird. And right before the picture fades to black, Kipper gets out of bed again. He doesn't even turn the light on. When the picture comes back, we see Kipper at the breakfast table. There's the cereal and milk. So I guess he finally gave up on sleeping. So maybe this is like really late at night or possibly early in the morning. Kipper says, I've been awake all night. And he pours the cereal and says, 1 night without sleep won't hurt. And he says, I'll catch up tomorrow. When I was a little kid, I always thought that part was kind of funny. It says, I'll catch up tomorrow. Always made me think of ketchup, like the stuff you put on a burger or french fries, the tomato stuff. I'll catch up tomorrow. And he pours milk on his cereal and lets out a big yawn and says, "Oh, I'm so tired." And some of the yawns that we hear in this episode, we hear again at the beginning of the episode Tiger's Sledge, when Kipper's getting up out of bed in the morning in that one. But Kipper's really sleepy now. He's so sleepy, in fact, that he can't eat his breakfast. And he doesn't even care that his cereal's going to get soggy soon. He just kind of falls asleep right there at the kitchen table. And he starts snoring. And the final shot, we see it's morning, the sun's coming up out the window. And that's it. That was Kipper the dog. Sleepless Night. The final story in today's set of 3 stories making up a half-hour program for Nick Jr. We did the Conker Tree, the Goldfish, and Sleepless Nights. I don't know which one of those 3 is my favorite, I really don't. I wouldn't say that any of these are my top favorites, but in terms of being very memorable, in terms of pleasant childhood nostalgia, I like all 3 of them. There are lots of others that I enjoyed a lot more of this, but they were good. Oh, actually, Sleepless Nights. Yeah, Sleepless Night. That one was my favorite when I was a kid. I don't know why, but it was an easy one for me to memorize, and I did a little puppet play of that episode with my hand puppets. As a matter of fact, I think I might post that on my YouTube channel if you're interested in seeing that. I was 5 years old when that was filmed. It's pretty cute. So, that's it for Kipper for this month. Now, it's time for me to tell you what I've got up my sleeve for this summer. This summer, in July and August, assuming that I'll be able to record these in time, I'm planning to do a summer of Kipper. As I mentioned before, I'm going to be scaling back on the podcast. I'll only be doing 2 per month instead of 4 or 5. But what I'm planning on doing is I'm going to be doing 2 episodes of Kipper in July on the 2nd and 4th Saturdays of July. And then I'll do yet another Kipper on the 2nd Saturday of August. And the 4th Saturday of August, I'll do the next Harriet the Spy. That'll be the 6th episode of Harriet the Spy. I'll do the 5th one in 2 weeks at the end of June. So in other words, I won't be doing any Reading Rainbow or Frog and Toad during the months of July or August. And the reason I'm scaling back is because I want to try to work on my book some more and get some illustrations made, because this podcast, as much as I enjoy it, makes it very difficult for me to find the time to do that. So that's what I have planned for this summer. So, on the 2nd Saturday of July will be our next Kipper analysis, and that week I'll be talking about 3 of my all-time favorites: Pig's Cousin, The Paddling Pool, and Tiger's Torch. Those are episodes 10, 11, and 12. Some incredibly fabulous oldies but goodies. So that's what we're doing in July, and we'll do some more Kipper in July later. But next week, it's time to hop back to the forest and spend some time with Frog and Toad as we take a look at Frog and Toad Season 1, Episodes 5A and B, The Kite, and Lost. The Kite is based on the 2nd chapter of the book Days with Frog and Toad, but Lost will be a brand new story made exclusively for Apple TV+. So we'll have fun talking about that, hopefully, next week. I can't really make any promises because my schedule's a little bit weird, and I've also injured myself recently. I did too many push-ups and my elbows and arms are not working right, so I mean, it doesn't really hinder my ability to do the podcast at all. If anything, it actually might make some more time for me to do it if I have to take some time off from work, but we'll see. Hopefully by the time you hear this, my arms will be healed, but if they're not, any prayers will be greatly appreciated. Anywho, that's all for now. This is Joshua Stauffer signing out. Hope you guys have a wonderful week. I'll be back next time with another fun-filled episode of Kids TV and Me. And now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to get ready for bed. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. Kids TV and Me is a fan-made podcast and is not affiliated with any of the programs, production companies, or networks mentioned on the show. My primary goal of this podcast is to shine a spotlight on some of the underrated classics from my childhood, and to help you make informed decisions about your children's screen time. If you are enjoying this podcast, don't forget to leave a rating and a review. And if your podcast provider has a comment section, let me know your thoughts on the topics we've talked about today. To keep the conversation going, you can also leave me a message on Instagram at Joshua Stauffer Creations. And don't forget to check out my Substack page at joshuastauffer1.substack.com, where you can find more information on my other creative works, including my Little Joshua webcomics and my book, Meet Zoe Richards, which is available in paperback on Amazon. Remember to always pay close attention to what your children are watching, and as always, don't be childish, but stay childlike.
It's time for bed, Mr. Snake. Sleepy time, Big Owl. In you get, Hippo. In you, Boston. Bedtime, Slipper. Night-night, toys. See you in morning.